the COVID situation, the world as business has changed forever. And therefore, all of us, if not most of us, will have to upskill and reskill ourselves. What are the new areas of opportunities? I would like to focus a little bit on that. And hopefully at around 7:30, we'll be a little better off than perhaps what we were at 6 p.m. Today. So because I have two topics to cover, first of all, my question to Manish and to Narayan Bhai is, can you hear me? Is my voice okay? Okay, good.
Yeah, perfect, excellent.
Okay, excellent. Because it's important that you are able to hear what I'm saying. And as I'm going along, if any one of you want to ask a question, you can unmute yourself and ask. I hope you have that possibility, or you can ask the question and Chirag will be able to help us with the questions to me.
Sorry, Robin, sorry to interfere. We have also our vice president, our president-elect Suhas, who has joined us. So I would also like to welcome Suhas.
Okay. Hello, Suhasji.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Hi. Okay, so if without much ado about anything else, let me share the screen. I'll go straight on the presentation which I have. You will see it's a lengthy one, but I will try to shorten and be within the next 30 days to give you a flavor as to how I believe you all can become an independent director, qualified independent director. Okay. Can you all see the presentation? Okay, good. Manish, there are some people who are waiting in the waiting room. You may like to ask.
Yeah. We are just screening them because someone don't have names. So
okay.
One confirm their.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. Good. So independent directors, I have written here the word an opportunity for CAs. This is because it's a BCA club, but I do understand some of you who are on this call may not be a CA. Doesn't really matter whether you are a CA or not. I think anyone who has a finance background, when I have studied finance, it could be CMA, it could be CS, you will be as well placed to qualify as an independent director as a CA could be. My presentation is getting blocked by that word. 4 people have entered the waiting room. I don't know why I have this.
No, we can see it perfectly, Robin.
No,
carry on.
I am getting a noting which is blocking my presentation for me. That's
okay.
How do I unlock it is what I'm...
You just press that minimize button there. On that. Because I need you the co-host, no? So therefore that's the reason it's coming.
Okay, I think that's... So my first chart, as you can see, why become an independent director, goes without saying. Most of us want to become an independent director because we believe it's a position. It's obviously a position. You are a director of a company. It gives you prestige. Of course, it gives you knowledge because you are able to understand what's happening elsewhere, and you can contribute to an organization. And whether it's the last but not least, I think hopefully we'll get some money also. So now question is, who can become an independent director? I am not going to explain to you what Section 149 of the Companies Act says. Broadly speaking, you have to be a man of ethics, and you should not be a related party. You should not be related to a promoter or director. You should not be somebody who has some pecuniary relationship, which means more than 2% shares of the company. You also should not be a director, auditor or a consultant. You should not be an employee. And you should not, broadly speaking, you should not hold you should not be a relative of anybody who holds more than 2% of the company. Essentially speaking, you are an independent means independent. So this is the broad requirement of Section 149. Most of you perhaps will be fulfilling this requirement. Now, what does it mean? What does an independent director mean? Of course, you are a non-executive director. Now, this is very crucial. You are a non-executive director. Many a times I have been hearing that why become an independent director? You will be liable, you will be responsible. You are not responsible. Believe in me, independent directors are not responsible. That's a myth. You are not an executive director. You do not run the company on a day-to-day basis. You don't know what's happening every day. And if there is a fraud for which you are not responsible for, neither you were actively involved, an independent director is not responsible. It's a myth that Companies Act 2013 has made independent directors more responsible. It is actually not true. Of course, you have heard or seen news item where independent directors have been taken to task. That's because he or she was responsible for sure in perhaps some scam or frauds. If there is an independent director, of course it helps because he is independent or she is independent. Hopefully, you become more. The credibility of governance standards improves with the organization. And yes, you can give the independence of judgment because you are an independent director. Broadly speaking, an independent director is someone who is not a promoter, who is not related party to the promoter, and it doesn't have any pecuniary relationship with the organization for which you are getting into directorship. So that's fine. Now, what does the independent, in order to become an independent director, what are the requirements? What do you need to do? The nodal body who is trying to manage and guide the independent director is Indian Institute of Corporate Affairs. That's the body which is trying to help the government to bring skills behind the independent directorship. It's no longer important that on 1st of December 2019, from 1st of December 2019, which is almost now 6 months back, if you were an independent director, if someone was an independent director, there was a necessity for him or her to register his or her name. That's fine, that's gone. It's just a legal requirement, it is done. However, now this is the heart and soul of it. Anybody who wants to become an independent director, this is the heart of the soul. If you want to become an independent director, and you must pass an examination. Now this is an online proficiency self-assessment test. It's a multiple choice question paper. For every question there will be 4 or 5 answers, and you have to just pick them, which is the right one. This proficiency is an online test, and it is conducted by IICA, which is Indian Institute of Corporate Affairs. And by 30th of November, any person who is an independent director today, he or she does not pass this exam, he or she has to vacate his independent directorship position. However, this doesn't apply to someone who has been a director or a key managerial personnel for at least 10 years. That means if there is a person who has been a director for more than 10 years, then he or she is exempted from passing this, appearing for this exam, and you are automatically qualified. Of course, you should have been for 10 years in a listed company, a director or a key managerial personnel, or an unlisted company with a paid up share capital of 10 crores and more, which means if anybody has been in a key position for more than 10 years in a large company, and that key position is either a director or a KMP, and most of you are chartered accountants on this call, on this webinar, so I'm sure you know what's a KMP, then you are exempted. And if you are exempted, fine. If you are not, then you have to pass this online proficiency assessment test. My purpose of this talk today, my dear friends, is how you can pass this test. This is my sole objective of this next, let's say, 20 minutes or so to explain to you as to how do you pass this exam. And if that is my purpose, which I presume you would agree with me that that's what I think we should focus on. So how do you pass that online proficiency test? So for this test, what are the things you should know? So let's understand what the things you should need to know. The online test, it's a 100-mark paper. It's a multiple choice question. There are 50 questions, and you have 75 minutes available, which basically means 1.5 minutes per question. And you have 25 direct questions and 25 indirect questions. And let me explain to you so that you can prepare yourself accordingly. Direct question will be that how many members should be there in a non-executive director? How much percentage? Is it 2/3 or 1/3? They will say 2/3, 1/3, 1/10, 1/2. In a board, how many should be a non-independent director? So that's a direct question. An indirect scenario-based question is a little case study. They will give you a 3 to 4 sentence case study, and they will give you possible options of the case study. And once you know the law, which all of you would know, it is rather simple to answer the question. Now, so therefore, there are 50 questions. You have to get 100 marks, and the passing mark is 60. Passing mark is 60, which is not mentioned here. So and just for information, there is no negative marking. That's a big advantage. Because there is no negative marking, you can comfortably make some guesses also, because nobody is going to penalize you if their guess is wrong. And chances are that your guess will be correct, because all of us are professional and know more or less from our common sense that this is what the answer should be. Now, how do you prepare for it? Now, see, there are the test. If you go to the IICS side, there are test modules, and there are 42 test modules. So all these test modules are bit-sized, and after you have studied the modules, there are some questions which are being asked, and if you answer the questions, then you will know that your preparation is fair or is okay or not. There are 42 test modules. Okay, that this is the heart of the soul. The IICS site has 42 test modules uploaded in their site. The 42, each test module is about 50 to 55 minutes, or some are about 1 hour. These are PowerPoint presentations with somebody speaking in behind. Somebody is speaking behind. So even if you can't read it, there will someone who will speak, and therefore you can put a hands-free in your ears and listen to the 42 modules. Because it is about an hour each module, that technically it should take about 42 hours to study. Most of the modules, and I will run through the modules just to tell you that for a chartered accountant or a finance people, it's so easy for you to understand and to prepare. But my humble submission is, please go to the modules. You will say, there is a module on accounts, and you say, oh, accounts to humko pata hai. But sometime we must have studied sometime back, and therefore there is a question, you might just get it wrong. So it's good to go through these 42 modules. What are these 42 modules? So I will quickly take you through the 42 modules so that it's easy for each one of you to understand how the preparation should go. So one module is on incorporation of companies. This is very simple. Incorporation of companies will include formation of companies, types of companies. So procedure for incorporation of company and memorandum articles. All of this we have heard, and all of this we have read before. So this is one module. The next module is on share capital. Very simple. Preference share capital, equity share capital, types of share capital, easy again. The next module is on general meetings. How do you conduct a general meeting? Which means how do you conduct the AGM? How do you conduct EGM? What are the procedures to be adopted? Again, more of secretarial than anything else. The whole objective of all this, and maybe upfront, let me tell you that you will see that if you are independent director, essentially speaking, all these modules are trying to prove and show that what is your rights and responsibilities and liabilities. When you sit on an independent board, and I sit on 3 independent boards as of now, and I've been sitting on independent boards for the last more than 20 years, and I'm in the active executive board of one of the company, the other members don't know. They don't know that should they ask questions, if they pass something, are they liable? So unfortunately, the world of independent directors are not knowing what they're supposed to do. So the whole 42 module or the exam is focused on explaining to all of you, explaining to the people that these are your rights, these are your responsibilities, and these are your liabilities. So, and you must ask the right question so that the company can be run efficiently. So general body meetings is something which you will have to learn. Accounts of companies, I don't need to explain that to the chartered accountants. It of course contains NAFRA, it contains financial reporting, key terminologies, and of course some accounting standards. Debentures and bonds, basically it's on the debt side. Basically, what are the types of bonds or the types of debentures? Many of you may be knowing something we don't always learn in the CA courses. So it's good to go through this module because it's just about 55 minutes module. Acceptance of deposit. This is a big liability, and therefore the independent director should know that if a company accepts the deposit from the public, what are the do's and don'ts and what are the responsibilities of the board on that. And that's the purpose of this module. There is a module on prospectus and allotment of shares. As you know, a lot of companies go for public issues. And when a company is going to public issue, how does independent director know that what is it they are going in for? So what is a prospectus? Sometimes independent directors don't know what is a prospectus. What is a red herring prospectus? They don't understand RHPs. So these are the words they can be familiar with through this module. So I keep on going with the modules. Related party transaction. Now that's something which is very important in the board, that the board members should know that nobody is doing a related party transaction. And if there is a related party transaction going on, they should then ask questions, or if a particular board member is involved in a related party transaction, then he or she should abstain himself or herself when the matter is getting discussed. You are aware what has happened in ICICI Bank with the chairperson, Madam Chanda Kochar. Same situation here. Maybe she wasn't even aware that related party transaction, she needs to do certain things. Although she was not an independent director, she was obviously an executive director. Audit and auditors, I don't need to tell chartered accountants about it. Okay, what are the responsibilities of auditors? What are the powers and duties? What questions auditors can ask? How often the audit has to take place? Who appoints auditors? It's a board which appoints auditors, and therefore these are something. And how do you select an auditor? This is something which is explained here. Mergers and acquisition. Many company goes through mergers and acquisitions, and therefore when they go through mergers and acquisition, what is a merger and acquisition? What are the rights and responsibilities? What's a cross merger? What's a demerger? And what's a legal framework in mergers takes place? Merger and acquisition globally, internationally, nationally, and these are the issues which are being taught or which are being explained in mergers and acquisition. This institution of directors basically means, what is this directorship all about? What are their legal status? What can the directors do? What questions can directors ask? What happens if somebody resigns? How do you resign from a directorship? If you resign, do you have some responsibilities and liabilities still with you? What about a woman director? Woman director is a big thing, as you know, in every society nowadays. So about that picture is getting captured here. Duties of directors, most important, because most of the independent directors do not know what are their duties. They do sit in the board many a time because a chairperson liked him or her or knew him or her, and he comes or she comes on the board and doesn't even know what the duties are. And therefore this module talks about what their duties are, what are they supposed to do, what questions they're supposed to ask. And of course, it boils down to what are their liabilities and what are their liabilities, if at all, if they don't ask any question. The next one is the liabilities of directors and KMP, which follows from the previous one, which is called the duties of directors. Obviously, liability comes into picture. If you're a key managerial personnel, for instance, if you're a CFO, and most chartered accountants will become a CFO, you become automatically, a company secretary is a KMP, a CFO is a KMP. Theoretically, these are the two people are KMPs all the time. CEO, of course, is a KMP. Normally, the marketing head, which is called a Chief Marketing Officer, CMO, may not be a KMP, may be a KMP. And COO may be a KMP, may not be a KMP. But the CEO, the CFO, and the CS are essentially in almost all companies identified as KMPs. And therefore, what are your liabilities? See, even if you're not an independent director, if you're a KMP, you have almost similar liabilities as an independent director. So please try to understand that. And therefore, what's the difference between, let's say, a managing director and KMP, or a KMP and independent director? Safeguarding of directors is very important. You will say, oh, there are lots of liabilities, responsibilities, so why should I become an independent director? It's not true. There are lots of protections given in the law. And if this module will go through, you will be able to understand the protections that the directors have. Normally, which means that if you have no direct nexus with a fraud or a scam, then chances are that you cannot be held responsible for. Operation and mismanagement, that's a big thing nowadays, because the minority shareholders sometimes oppresses. In fact, a majority shareholder can oppress the minority shareholder. And therefore, and normally these operation mismanagement cases goes to NCLT nowadays. A lot of cases in NCLT is on operation mismanagement. what is operation risk management, how to the board should handle, what are the things to be done is something which is good to know from this particular case. Module. Penalties and compounding of offenses. And Companies Act 2013 is full of penalties. If you don't do this, you go to the jail for 1 month. If you don't do this, you pay 5,000 rupees penalty. If you do that, you pay 20,000 rupees penalty. All those who are hearing me, my submission to you is a classified information for you that penalties, not too important to know that every rupee of the penalty. So as long as you know the generic concept of the penalties, that should be fine, is what I would like to tell you. SEBI LODR, that is listing obligations. LODR is now very important. If you're a listed company, then what are the responsibilities? What is it that you need to do? And basically, it is the LODR requirement which this is talking about, essentially for, again, listed companies. Board committees, and you know, board will have to have an audit committee, remuneration, nomination, remuneration committee, corporate social responsibility committee, and a stakeholders relationship committee. These are the normal requirements of committees. What are the liabilities and rights of these committees? What are they supposed to do is what this particular committee is talking about. Then comes some secretarial practices, basically secretarial audit and compliances. As we all know that most companies have to go, especially the listed companies have to go to the secretarial audit. What is a secretarial audit? How do you do that? How do you appoint a secretarial auditor? How can he or she resign if there are problems? How do you remove somebody if you don't like him or her? And of course, you understand the compliances on secretarial audit. There is another secretarial standard too, which goes a little more deeper into it. What are the general meeting? How to handle general meeting? How to handle issue notices? How do you decide who's the chairman of a meeting? How do you do e-voting? A little more nitty-gritty of a secretarial practice. Please try to understand that all these modules are with the objective that you are an independent director of an organization. So you don't need to know absolute nitty-gritties, but you need to know an overarching comments that, okay, this is how an e-voting needs to be done. This is how a chairman is appointed. If you don't know, then you cannot be able to suggest to the company that this is how, my dear friends, things needs to be done. Board meetings. Now, this is the heart of a situation. As you know, every quarter a board meeting has to be held. That's the minimum requirement as per law. And if the board meeting is held, what's the quorum of the board meeting? Who can attend the board meeting? How many days of notice needs to be given after the board meeting is held? What intimation needs to go to the stock exchange and LODR? All that is what you will learn in this particular module. Corporate social responsibility is a big thing. Of course, post-COVID, CSR will become, to my mind, a huge thing. As you also know, there is something called ESG, which is called Environment, Social, and Governance Companies, ESG companies. Again, it's not part of this, what CSR, what a CSR Responsible Companies Act is. There's a CSR committee, 2% of your profits you have to spend. What happens if you don't spend? Where do you spend? Can you spend on something on which the board members are interested? Can you train your employees and say, I have fulfilled the CSR responsibilities, so on and so forth, will be asked or will be handled in this particular module. How to read a balance sheet? I don't need to explain to the chartered accountants on this. Simple, but it may be worthwhile because there will be some terms which you may have forgotten because of passage of time. Although it will be simple, but do hear this 15 minutes module. I think it will be quite useful. Decoding financial statement is the same thing. Profit and loss account balance sheet. How is Caro report? Basically, an auditor's report. How it is written. What are the things which are mentioned nowadays in auditor's report? Can a qualification happen in the auditor's report? There is a module on professional ethics. It's all about ethics. This particular module is done by me. If you ever go through the module, this is my voice. This is the one which I've done it myself. Maybe you will like it, but look at it. It is a little different because I'm a practicing executive and therefore made it a little practical. So it's all about governance and how can someone cheat an organization and what has happened in the past, and therefore what steps the independent directors could have taken and should take. Due diligence before joining a board. When you join a board, you will always ask a question, is this the right board to join? How do you understand the board? How do you know and what should you do before you join a board? So this is something which will hopefully help you to do a due diligence in case a company asks you to join a board. It's a practical one, and therefore it is worthwhile going through this module also. What are exemplary board? Exemplary boards are something, these are real standard boards. Let's say Tata board, or Aditya Birla Group, or Mahindra board, or a L&T board. These are called exemplary boards. And therefore, how do you identify, how do you define an exemplary board? How to make one exemplary board? What are the roles and responsibilities, and so on and so forth? This is a nice thing to know, because then you know what a good board is all about. And once you know the exemplary board, how do you do the board effectiveness and culture? And therefore, what are the human elements? What are the techniques of informal meetings? At the end of the day, board is responsible for running an organization. And therefore, this informal relationship between the board members are also very important. Trust factor among the board members, and all that is being talked about in this particular module. Building the board's role, basically building a resilient company in the board's role. It's all about basically the enterprise risk management. There's so much of risk nowadays, and therefore, if the risk management is good, then perhaps you can build a resilient board. So this is again something which is spoken about in this particular module. Governance committees, governance of committees. Now there are various committees. Now, how do you identify what's the need of the boards? How do you define what the governance committees are? And how do you define the limitations of board committees? Basically, there are 4 board committees, as you know, basically, which are Remunerations and Audit Committee, the Shareholders Grievance Committee, the CSR Committee, and so on and so forth. And therefore, the governance of those boards is what is getting discussed in this particular module. Governance and strategy, actually, at the end of the day, the board has to have good corporate governance. And therefore, how do you define what's a good governance of a board? And therefore, what a board should have a vision. If a board is very aggressive, then how as an independent director can cool the aggression down? And if the board is taking a big risk as an independent director, what you should do to suggest the organization to do, that's what it is getting covered in this particular one. Managing CSR and engaging stakeholders. As you know, again, it is CSR only. How do you define the stakeholders in a CSR? This is very, very simple. I think what are the things which you should identify when the CSR activities of an organization? I don't need to explain to chartered accountants here, managing to financial ratios. It's all about debt equity ratio. They will ask you some preference, equity and preference shares, some ratio question they will ask you. And there will be multiple questions. And I would again suggest that if you go through this module, I think it would be quite useful for you to pass this particular module questions if questions are asked from this module. Board evaluation. As you know, the board members are now subject to evaluation by the board themselves. Each member of the board of directors evaluate each other. So how often the evaluation should take place? What happens? How do you evaluate the chairperson of the board? What's the culture of a good, well-evaluated board is what is discussed here. Evaluation of independent directors. Again, the board members evaluate other independent directors, how it is done, how the reports have to be maintained. Once a year, an independent director's report has to be made by all listed companies. So this is something which is explained here. Having said that, now these are all the important modules. I think I have covered about 35 modules, and there were 42 if you remember. There are about 7 of them which are case studies. These case studies, all these case studies are on the major frauds and scams which has taken place in the world. WorldCom fraud, you know that. Enron, again, fraud, that's another case study. Volkswagen, which has just happened about 3 years back, a latest case study on an emission scandal. Olympus, as you know, this is a Japanese company, it's a camera company, had a big accounting jugglery, which the new CEO caught when he came and got on his saddle. Satyam, everyone is aware of that Satyam scandal, misrepresenting the numbers on cash and sales numbers and profit numbers and debtors numbers and creditors numbers, of course. Balance sheet fraud, Maruti Suzuki. This is a case where the labor misbehaved, and somebody got killed inside the factory. So what is the case study and how that independent directors could have behaved here? And Hydro One is a Canadian company. It's a Canadian company which generates power, and this is a case on how they could do risk management in the case in the days when the coal, which is a bad word, and they can get into renewable energy. So now these are the case studies. So if I go back quickly, I have told you WorldCom, Enron, Volkswagen, Olympus, Satyam, Maruti, and Hydro One. These are 7 case studies. Good to know. Don't give too much importance to this because I presume there should be adequate questions on the other side. But it's good to know how these 7 examples have happened. Having said that, many a times we say, oh, I have become too old, I'm very busy, why become a director? Is it worthwhile? And I'm quite sure all those who are on this webinar today, you all have, and most of you have this innate desire that I want to become an independent director. You shouldn't give up. You just spend a few hours. Most of us are in a lockdown situation. I think if you give the next 3 to 4 days, go through these 42 modules, I assure you, you will all qualify this exam, this test. Some hints to pass the self-assessment test. The hints are the ISEA website is the best. Go to the 42 modules for sure, as I explained. They have all these PowerPoint presentations, and each PowerPoint presentation, each module has a test after that. So attempt that test. Plus, there is a dummy self-assessment test after you have completed your 42 modules. And that will give you an idea as to whether your coverage, your understanding is good. My suggestion is book a date. Once you book your test date, they will give you a date after 6-7 days. Appear for the test. If you fail, doesn't matter, keep quiet. Don't tell anyone that you have appeared for the test. And if you qualify, tell everybody that I have qualified. So, and there are no limitations to the number of times you can appear. It's not that you are first attempt CA or 100th attempt CA. In this particular case, it really doesn't matter. And no one is going to tell you that you have attempted this in the first or second or third attempt. So my submission is go to the 42 modules, book a test date, appear for the test date, appear for the test. You will find if everything goes well, you pass. If you don't pass, you will know what are the gaps, and you study those gaps and then you pass the next time. I don't think you need to attempt more than 2 times. So that's it. I'm saying currently over 80% are passing, just for information. Very good running rate for sure. Some does say that aren't I hearing that people, independent directors, are resigning? Just see, in 99 actually, the people who resigned from the board, where they resigned, the reason, there are 168 resignations of listed companies. Can you see the resignation reasons? Because they got superannuated. There were other preoccupations. They were demised, people died. Then they were not interested, there are health reasons. So you can well imagine after 168, people had resigned because of reasons which were out of their control. So people are not resigning that it is not a good thing to do. People are resigning because they had to resign. So I would still say that this is something which you should do. Ideal, to my mind, independent director tests are ideal for chartered accountants, ideal for a finance person, very, very ideal. And I've gone through all the 42 modules with you, and I'm sure there is no reason as to why all those who are participating here, I think 61 of you here, shouldn't be able to qualify the exam, qualify this test. So it is 6:45. We can take a 5 minutes question answer on this one before I move on to the next one. I'm happy to take the questions.
Thank you, Robin. I think so. Your presentation was crisp and very clear, and it will really inspire many of us to give the exams who have not yet given. Yeah, Chirag, do we have any questions?
Just take them one by one. Is it necessary to clear all the 42 modules?
Okay, I don't know how to answer this question. The first 35 you do, the last 7, the 7 test cases, I don't think it's as important. But 35 you should. Then you have a chance of getting 80%, 90% marks. Now, why take a chance with 60%?
Second was, is there any restriction? What is the age factor to appear for this exam?
Infinity, no restriction, no restriction. There is no age limit whatsoever. But yes, if you are more than 75 years of age in an organization, want to become a director, there has to be a special resolution by the shareholders. But that doesn't mean that you cannot become a cannot pass an independent directorship. So there is a legal not hurdle, but the legal requirement of an elderly person continuing to become a director. But there is no limitation whatsoever. At any age, you can be 20 years of age, or you can be 80 years of age. You can qualify for this exam. In fact, many of you who are on this call, on this webinar, you may be very young. Maybe you're in early 20s or early 30s. You will say, "Arey, independent director हमारे लिए नहीं है." I personally feel independent director सबके लिए है. Why? Come 1st of December, all those companies where there are independent directors who have not qualified for the exam, and this exam, many will not qualify. People who are an engineer and IT guys or marketing guys, I think they might find little difficulties. I think so, although one tried to make it as simple as possible. And therefore, a lot of positions will get vacated. Now, who will become independent director? Of course, all those who have qualified. This is one. So please qualify. There are new vistas of opportunities should come in. Secondly, in startups, there are so many startups which keeps on coming. The startups are generally started by a youngster, a 23-year-old kid or a 25-year-old kid, very smart from IITs of the world, or an IT engineer starts with a startup. Now, if the entrepreneur, the startup chairman or chairperson is a young boy or young girl, the other independent directors will also be young. So he or she is also looking for young people. And now, if you're young and qualified independent director exam, then you become an independent director of that young company. So I think now opportunities are for everyone, especially for women, for ladies, girls, and ladies who are on this webinar. My dear friends, my dear ladies, come 30th November, I personally feel there will be a huge opportunity. A lot of resignations, I feel, will happen among the women directors. Women directors who have been there for 7 years, 8 years, 6 years, 5 years, they will say, "Oh, it's hamare liye nahi. I don't want to go through this trouble of studying. So let me give up." And those lot of positions should come up, especially for women. I personally feel come 1st of December, a lot of opportunities are going to come.
Another question was after
I have two questions, Robin, here. Nothing to nothing to do with the clearing of the exams, but one thing is that suppose if somebody wants to take up independent directorship in any company, and comes to you that, okay, what due diligence should I do? So what is the 5 points or 4 points or checklist that you would give? One, that, okay, for this company, whether this company is worthwhile or no, what are the risks involved? These are the 5. So I want you to throw light on that. And second link to that is that what is the currently the position, or what is the scenario of the professional indemnity? Is any insurance available? I think so. These are the two questions from my side. Thanks.
Okay, how do you choose directorship? First, see the internet. Are there any news about scams of that organization? Has there been any negative news on the promoters or the existing directors going behind bars or avoidance of taxes? Number 3, does the company produce a product which you are happy with? Basically, if you hear, if there is a smoke, there is a fire. So it is important to know. That what is the general hawa of that company's name in the market. Otherwise, I think it's fine. You can always join a company, and if you find in 3 months' time there are a lot of, let's say, gochi baji, you can always resign. Resignation is in your hand. Joining is not. So that's not a problem. So due diligence shouldn't be too difficult to do. Your second question is there an indemnity? Yes, there's a D&O policy, directors and officers obligations insurance, which every company does, or most companies take. So once you become a director, take a D&O policy, you will automatically be admitted to the D&O policy of the company. And that insurance essentially covers all the legal cost. If there is a case against you, the D&O policy will cover all the legal costs, which can go into crores, will be covered by the D&O policy. Otherwise, essentially, if you have done no wrong, you will have to defend yourself, and the D&O policy will help you to defend your case. This is what will happen.
Thank you. Thank you.
Another question online is, once you have cleared this test and you are registered, how to approach companies for the board's position?
I don't know the answer. This is the most difficult one. This is the most difficult one. Uh, um, you cannot approach. You see, in India still in India, if you go abroad, you will find there are advertisement asking for independent directors applications. They are seeking application. Here they will ask for a CFO and CMO's position, but I don't think you ever heard that they are asking for independent directors. So in India, as of now, independent directors are not being asked for. But come 1st of December, when willy-nilly all those who have not been in the board for 10 years have to resign if they have not passed this test, lot new positions will come. I think the method of appointing independent directors from 1st December 2020 might shift a lot. You could actually find advertisements coming up seeking applications from candidates. As of now, independent directorship is all about networking and your knowledge of people. And I suggest don't wait for, once you pass this exam, of course, I'm happy, my number is there, my telephone number, everything is there. Happy to help you in whatever way I can. Start networking with others. More the networking you have, once you, of course, pass the exam, qualify the exam, more the network you have, more the chance of becoming an independent director. That's what it is.
Robin,
So Robin, another question was this entire modules seems to be very company law and companies act heavy. So, if doesn't it defeat the purpose of having technical people or marketing people
It does.
on the board, having
does.
equal chance?
It does. Absolutely it does. And therefore, my first chart, if you remember saying, this is an ideal exam for CAs. It does. Lot of debate has gone behind it. I have been party to the debate, but we couldn't find ways as to how we can avoid this little learning. If you are an independent director, you have to know what is your rights and liabilities and responsibilities. The only way to know that is to understand a little bit of balance sheet and profit and loss account, little bit what is companies, a little bit what LODR is saying. There is no option. Well, you can, fortunately, I'm speaking to a group of CS, so you will not kill me for that. But if I was talking to IIT graduates, I'm sure he would have thrown stone at me and if not tomatoes at me.
Another thing was, is this exam an open book exam?
And no, okay. Yes, because you are doing it sitting at your home. It is an open book. It is sitting at your home. You have to answer 60 questions in 75 minutes. Therefore, chance of opening a book is very limited. But if you open, that's not a problem. You will be on camera. You will be recorded all the time. So nobody else can do the exam. No chance. That chance doesn't exist. But yes, you can, one or two things you can, I don't think more than 3-4 questions you can check out if you want to, but you will really need to have the answers ready, because 60 questions, 75 minutes, not as good for open book. But yes, you can check it, no problem. Right. You can open the book and ask. You can keep it in your side, handy, make some notes handy, and as soon as a question comes, you can look at the notes and answer, no problem at all.
Okay. I think that is what is there on the online.
Yeah, we should shift.
So we can move to the second part of the presentation. If there's any more related to the first part, if people post more.
Yeah,
I think so. Narayanji wanted to ask one question.
Okay.
Narayan, you are on mute. Narayan, you are on mute.
Yeah, no. He's not the host, so therefore he cannot. Now we have unmuted.
Yeah. Robin.
Yes, sir.
I understand from very lot of friends of mine why people are shying away from this profession of independent directorship, because in the last few years, in case of investigations happening in that company, the regulators are not differentiating between the dependent directors and the independent directors. So the myth that we don't carry out day-to-day activities, basically, and we will not be held responsible in case of large investigations happening in that company, wherever we are a directors. I think that is a lot of people are shying away. In fact, I am one of them. So,
Narayanji, I will assure you that if you are not involved in that nefarious activity, nothing will happen to an independent director. Nothing. Companies Act is very clear that you go for a meeting once in 3 months only. And that once in 3 months for 2 to 3 hours. And that also based on what management wants to show you, they will show you and get some signatures. Independent directors are not responsible. Now there are hundreds and thousands of scams which are taking place. How many independent directors have gone behind bars? None. How many independent directors were actually hauled up? Except for, to my mind, the PMC Bank and IDBI Bank. IDBI Bank made, though independent director ka passport was confiscated, and where it was proven that time, right or wrong, I do not want to go,
Okay.
that they had sought in a meeting where the list of loans were being given and they went through that loan list. And PMC Bank, everybody knows what happened.
Correct.
So, sir, other than that, in my view, it hasn't. So don't worry. Please become an independent director. Main hu na.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay, good. Now let's go to the next one.
Yeah.
Can you see it?
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, I have to now go to the, now you can see it.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, so now I will change my tag. I'm going to something called new skills, which I believe CS should have. And here CS, I wrote CA because I'm in a BCA program, but I do understand today from Manish that some of the BCA members are non-CS. You people, I'm sure, are finance people, and all of you who are there on finance. So I would think that finance for CS and finance people should be the same. The world is definitely changing. Now, Mike, the question which you have to ask, it's 7 o'clock, we have 30 minutes to go. We will try to do it in 20 minutes or so. Let me see whether we can, and so that we can have 10 minutes question answer, although I have all the time. Why are a CA chosen for a job? Why is a CA asked for? What is your USP? What is our USP? USP means unique selling proposition. Why should anybody come to a CA at all? Either as a consultant or as an employee. There are two career options for us. We have industry. We can go to the practice. We can go to the industry. And who are our competitors? We have to ask a question. Whom are we competing against? In case of industry, we are competing against the MBAs of the top 30 institutes. Whether it is 30, 35, 50, 40, we can argue till the cows go home. It is the top-notch MBAs who are our competitors. And in case of practice, our competitors are lawyers with finance background. They are the ones who are our competitors. Now, therefore, whenever we talk about what is it, our skills, we always do competition analysis. We have to understand what is competition good at. And once we know competition analysis, we would then know what is it that we need to know good for us to flourish. I would broadly say there are 4 types of people we have. We have beginners who are less than 5 years experience. There are established CAs who are 5 to 20 years. There are experienced, some few of us, 20 to 30, and elderly or veterans. So over 30 years of experience, we will say, oh, we are all veterans. Now, this is the broad classification, and therefore the skills, not all the skills to my mind would applicable to everything, but yes, this might help you to decide what skills you need to have at what point of time. The first thing, ladies and gentlemen, the first thing which you need to know, there are some generic skills which we must have to succeed, and especially in the post-COVID world. In the post-COVID world, the world of business has changed forever, and it's a tectonic change. Tectonic change basically means that if you assume that the whole world has gone to an earthquake, and where there was a mountain gone, sea has come, and there when there was a sea, a mountain has come. It is such change has happened in this world. And therefore, the general skills which we should have a subject knowledge. We should be able to identify problems. Many a times as CAs, we say, we will always not identify problem, but say, yeah, problem hai. But then if you identify the problem, what is the solution? Please provide solutions also. I name it as SIP. You must have a subject knowledge. You must identify problems, and you will also have to provide the solution. This is very, very important. Having said that, so the most generic skill, it is important that we have the subject knowledge. It is important that we are able to identify problems. And it is important that we are able to provide solutions. Having said that, there are some hard and soft skills which we need to have. Now, when the hard skills we talk about, hard skills are those skills which are acquired through education and training. Now so hard skills you can acquire. Soft skills, difficult to acquire. So we have to imbibe that. Hard skills, therefore, it is perhaps easier. What are those hard skills? Before I get into hard skills, I want to tell you one word, and many of you will not like what I'm saying. To my mind, my dear friends, the days of accountancy, auditing, taxation, and trading, I mean trading in shares, are almost over. Please look at 5 to 10 years from today. You have to look at least 5 to 10 years from today and say that where will the accountancy and auditing jobs will be? Will there be still GST filing continue after 10 years? Most probably not. Most probably even after 2-3 years not. Will people come to chartered accountants for trading in shares or suggesting, because it will all be on the computer. There'll be algorithmic trading. AIs will suggest moves. There'll be internet sites which will suggest trading, which shares to buy and which shares not to buy. 90% of shares in the world are traded not because of underlying let's say strength of the organization, is all algorithmic. So there is computer is doing some mathematics and trying to say this is the company shares you should buy because this is a company share is going to grow. I'm happy to explain to you what algorithmic trading is all about, but we will not get into that. My humble submission to you all of is, maybe you will hate me because I said these words, but I definitely and genuinely believe that the days of accounting, auditing, and taxation and trading are getting over. And COVID has accelerated the process. And therefore, what are the skills which we should get? One skill which I think will do very well is financing, because every business needs money, be it debt or equity. And therefore, who is going to get the money? For that, you have to come to somebody who understands financing. And that's not going to go out. So to prepare a financial proposal, to prepare a proposal which is making sense to the lenders, to the equity stakeholders. And another thing which is important, apart from raising money, the restructuring will always be an issue. And with the COVID world, restructuring of debt, restructuring a balance sheet is going to be a huge requirement. So one of the requirements, my dear friends, is financing. Many a times I have noticed the financing skills are with the MBAs, those IIT MBA types, engineer MBA types, but chartered accountants somehow have not gone into financing as much what I would have loved to have. So kindly, ladies and gentlemen, that's a great opportunity because you understand figures the better than MBA can understand. The next skill which I think you should have is big data and artificial intelligence. This is the future of tomorrow. Big data. Why big data I'm talking about? Who understands data the best? A chartered accountant understands data the best. Nobody else understands data better than a chartered accountant. However, we are not in the big data game. The big data game is played by the software guys. But software don't understand data. They know how to prepare the data. What about interpreting the data? It is chartered accountants. But we have shied away from this. And big data and AI both together is a winning combination for tomorrow. My dear friends, if you are young, if you're in this bracket, which I said, if you remember, there's beginners and established bracket, less than 5 years and 5 to 20 years. Please, my dear friends, please look at this big data and artificial intelligence. It's a great opportunity for tomorrow. The next one is this one, blockchain and cryptocurrency. Blockchain, moment we talk about blockchain, we'll say, oh, it is only to do with Bitcoins. Bitcoin is a bad thing. I know, I agree with you. Bitcoin is a bad thing. Bitcoin you shouldn't even touch. But the blockchain is all about ledger accounting. I hope you know, ladies and gentlemen. Blockchain is all about independent ledgers being maintained by, let's say, 12 independent people. And as a transaction takes place, all the 12 ledgers shows the movement of the goods, shows the movement of the transaction. Blockchain is excellent for hospitality, excellent for financial transactions, excellent for logistics. I'm happy to explain to you later what is blockchain all about and how it works. But blockchain is all accountancy. It is ledger. Why should the CAs not be in blockchain? Why the IT guys are in blockchain? They can structure in the IT, but what about, they cannot even structure. They know how the IT works. Why do you think, my dear friends, blockchain is such a great technology? It's still not popular till today. Why? Because the CAs have not gone into it. The finance people have not got into it. And so blockchain and cryptocurrency, in my view, cryptocurrency is a subset of blockchain. Please look at it as a great opportunity for tomorrow. One opportunity, hard skill, which you must have is a turnaround specialist, especially after post-COVID. Hundreds and thousands of companies are going to go bankrupt. How to turn them around? In order to turn around, make it from red to black, who is the person who understands numbers? And who is the person who can give an holistic view? And who is the person who can have a 360 degrees ability? It is a CA, it's a finance people who has this ability. And therefore, if you can convert yourself into a turnaround specialist, converting loss-making companies into profits, that will include purchasing, technology, manufacturing, marketing, sales, IT, HR, the whole thing. Financing, of course, will be one of them. The whole thing holistically, if you can look at, then you can actually become a turnaround specialist. Raise startup. Startup is a huge opportunity, my dear friends. How do you raise money? How do you negotiate for a startup? 360 degrees ability and operationalize a vision. You see, the startups are usually started by a very smart person. He or she has a great vision, but he or she cannot operationalize the vision. It is a chartered accountant who can operationalize the vision, because you and me have the ability to do a 360 degrees view. We know how the numbers look like. We can interpret a number. We can understand what an asset and liability is. We know what the profit and loss account is. We know what's an expenditure and capitalization of expenses is. They don't understand all that. Therefore, startups, and therefore working with startups and making a startup profitable is a great opportunity. And if you can make that, you will remain their lifetime consultant. They will never leave you. Lifetime you will be with the startup. My submission to all of you is, each one of us in this case of hard skills must have a holistic knowledge. Very important. You know, the previous ones is accounting, auditing, taxation, corporate law. All of you are very good at that. So I don't need to talk about that. Financing, I feel many of us are not good at. So this is gray color. Now, the more gray color is insurance and risk management, purchasing, logistics, IT and HR. Very important that you have knowledge in these areas. You don't have to have expert knowledge, but don't say, I'm not a logistics person. Main to chartered accountant too. Doesn't work anymore. Those days have gone. You have to be a logistics person. You have to be a purchase person. You have to be a corporate law specialist. Many a times I have heard chartered accountants saying that I'm a tax expert, but I only do direct tax. What nonsense. Why direct tax? Why not indirect tax? And why, if indirect tax, why not tax? Direct tax? Tax is tax. You have to be now knowing all taxes. Believe me, the days of super specialization, I think, are coming to a great. I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. But please try to be not a super specialist anymore. I still believe a holistic knowledge is much better than anything else. So I will summarize it. If I go back, the hard skills, financing is something which you should look at. Big data and artificial intelligence is a great opportunity for tomorrow. Blockchain is the future. Turnaround specialist, holistic startups, and have a holistic knowledge of the business processes. Once you have a holistic knowledge of business processes, you can actually become the eyes and ears of the entrepreneur and eyes and ears of the board. So that's what hard skills were all about. I will now move to, pause for 1 or 2 seconds. I will now move into soft skills. So hard skills, it's in front of you, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, possible to learn, not easy to learn. Many of you say, Abhi, big data, where will I learn from? Artificial intelligence, where will I learn from? Yes, it's difficult. Not too many courses are taking place, but with the webinars coming in, a lot of international business schools are having these courses. So I would request many of you or some of you to look at it. You may not be big data blockchain enabled or interested. Look at a turnaround specialist. If you don't want to turn around, then look at startups as an opportunity, because a lot of companies are going to go bust. And therefore, they will all like to start back again in a new avatar. So big opportunities, in my view, are coming for CAs. Big opportunities. And of course, financing goes without saying. Everyone will need funding and financing. Everyone would need restructuring. Again, a big opportunity. for all of us. Soft skills. Soft skills here means personal positive powers, PPP. We saw SIP over there. You have to identify the problems and give solutions, and of course have systematic knowledge. Here, it is personal positive power is all about soft skills. PPP, please remember, PPP, personal positive powers. The first soft skill you will have to have is communication. Here, my dear friends, I think many of us do not do too well. We need to first communicate. If you don't communicate, if you are not able to communicate, how will you sell yourself? What is the first impression a person has of us when a person meets us? One is the dress, and of course the grooming, that's fine. But the next minute or next second, it's when we start speaking. And we need to speak good English. My humble submission to you, all of you, is each one of us, we cannot anymore speak Tamilian English, Bengali English, Gujarati English. We have to speak English. And that English is not American English or Australian English or Japanese English or Chinese English. It is BBC English. In my view, for the BBC English, listen to the BBC for the next 15 days. Every 8:30, 9:30, 10:30, every half an hour, every 1 hour, there is a BBC News. That's for 20 minutes. Listen to the news, and I can assure you in 15 to 20 days, you will start speaking that language. Of course, you have to make little effort, but it just works beautifully. Written communication. Most of us are always communicating through emails. You can't afford to write an incorrect email anymore. We have to write the correct email. Oral, of course, you have to be able to speak well across the table in groups and with the superior. And very important, my dear friends, in communication is presentation skills. The presentation skill, you need to prepare and explain also very well. And in the presentation skills, I want to give you one little heads up. You may or may not like my presentation here, but you will see all my charts have very little words to say. Very little. All my charts have photo pictures, but because I had to send the presentation to Manish, I took out the pictures, except a few of them. And all this presentation has you must have least amount of words on the presentation. Many of our presentations are a lot of verbose, a lot of things are written. Nobody can listen to or hear or read all that. So make it simple, make the presentation crisp, and you must be able to explain what you want to communicate in the chart. Next is listening. Ladies and gentlemen, this is something which we don't have. Most of us cannot listen and are not able to listen. Whenever we speak, we try to interject. Most of us don't listen. Be attentive. Believe in me, it will cultivate patience. Moment you start cultivating patience, it works wonders. Listening is a soft skill. We, the chartered accountants, we, the accounting fraternity, must have. So the first one is communication skill. Next one is listening skill. Both are feasible, very feasible to obtain and inculcate. Next is ethics. This is the heart and soul of chartered accountants. Ethics. Now, I don't know the answer. You will be able to know the answer. That should you be ethical or should we not be ethical? It cuts both ways. Sometimes we have to sign a balance sheet and profit and loss account, knowing fully well that the stocks don't exist or debtors don't exist. Do you sign? If you don't sign, the client goes away. Or do you get it rectified? I don't know the answer because all of you would know much better than me. But yes, if you are ethical, if our profession is ethical, I believe we would do extremely better and much better than what we have hitherto done. So in ethics, to be or not to be is a question which I leave it to you and do not want to explain here much because you will know much more than what I know on this topic. This is a very important word called EQ. Ladies and gentlemen, you have heard of the word IQ, intelligence quotient. Intelligence is not good enough. You have to have EQ, emotional quotient. Emotional quotient is all about ability to deal with others. That's where we, the chartered accountants, many a times don't perform well. We are intelligent. We are super intelligent. If we were not intelligent, we would not have passed this exam, for sure. We have passed the world's most difficult exam called chartered accountancy. And most of us on this call, most of us on this webinar are CAs. We have passed the most difficult exam for sure. But what about EQ? EQ we have to learn. Have you noticed? Just think about it. In your school, there must have been a first boy or a first girl, unless you were one of them. But if you're not the first boy and the first girl, just imagine where is he or she now? Very high IQ. That's why the child was getting the first position. But chances are that he or she has not been able to do well. People who are very intelligent normally don't have high EQ because they have a high ego. So people say you are very good. Nobody tells them, Baba, you are good, but you are not as good as a God. So you have to be humble and you have to have humility. And that's what brings other people with you. You know, Narayan Murthy. Why is Narayan Murthy Narayan Murthy? Why is Ratan Tata Ratan Tata? Why not we talk about others? Because they have high EQ. I have worked with Mr. Ellen Mittal, Lakshminivas Mittal, shoulder to shoulder. I worked with him shoulder to shoulder. Believe me, because I was his managing director in Germany. He is a high IQ. The moment he goes and sees a steel plant, he knows a steel plant humko kharidna hai. But his EQ is amazing. He puts his arms around his shoulder and can blend and melt a person's heart, because that's called EQ. And see what success he's got. He's the most successful Indian today in the world because he's a high EQ. Happy to discuss this later on. Having said that, cool and calm, very important. You must be cool and calm because don't get flustered. Have you noticed that? Let me give you an example. Do you know there are these mutual funds, and there are about more than 100 mutual funds in the country. I'll just give one example. And all these mutual funds will have a CIO, which is a chief investment officer, who are supposed to be the most intelligent people. But only 10 mutual funds succeed in India. And this will be all over the world. Why 90 don't succeed and 10 succeeds in mutual funds? Have you noticed? Because the CIOs of those 10 funds are cool and calm. They don't get flustered by ups and downs of stock market. And the 90 does get flustered. They are going in and coming out, and they are unsuccessful investors or investment managers. So very important that as CAs, as accountants, as CFOs, we will be subjected to a lot of pressures. We will be. And there we must not get flustered. We need to be tactical, and we have to have a good time management. Having said that, what are the soft skills generally for elderly and veterans? I would like to add a few more, because all these others I said perhaps are meant for the young, perhaps, but everyone can have that. I would think that all those who are perhaps having 30 years of experience, why don't you get into these 5 things? Mentoring, teaching, get into YouTube, podcasting, writing. This will not only give you satisfaction, not only give you name, it will give you fame and also a lot of learning. Please mentor others. Teach. People are looking for you to teach, ladies and gentlemen. YouTubing is free. Go to YouTube and so much knowledge you have got. Do an YouTube. Start doing YouTube once a week, once in a month maybe. Podcasting, that's the future. Podcasting is extremely popular in US and Europe. It's not caught on in India. And writing, if you can't write a book, which could be too heavy for you all, at least start writing articles. For so many newspapers, so many magazines, so many bloggers, blogs, sites, they're all looking for articles. And we are chartered accountants. We are the right people to write on so many things we can write. So please, if you can get this new habit or skill, that would be wonderful. Having said that, what are the skills I'm talking about? I'm talking about communication, which is possible, which please learn. And genuinely, I believe you should be a good communicator, because that's how we can sell. Please get into the habit of listening. Have ethics, good or bad. I'm not going to comment on that. EQ, apart from IQ, be cool and calm, and see if you can do mentoring, teaching, writing. Many of you are doing that, and I know for sure, but perhaps there is still some scope for us to do more. Having said that, what is it that overall I'm trying to talk about? I talked about the generic skill, which is nothing else but try to understand what's the problem and try to be a solution provider. Then there are hard skills and there are soft skills. So there are generic skills and there are hard skills and the soft skills. So one of the conundrums we always have is, should I become a specialist or should I become a generalist? It's a conundrum, very difficult to answer, but this conundrum does go through. People who are young on this call, on this webinar must be thinking, acha, humko specialist hona chahiye, or should I become a generalist? It is a conundrum. But before that, I prefer being a generalist, because if you are generalist, there is something called jack of all trades, master of none. That helps you to become a turnaround specialist. That helps you to become eyes and ears of someone, because you understand the holistic purpose of the business. Because business is not about direct and indirect tax. Business is all about procurement, manufacturing, dispatching, selling, logistics, HR, IT. It's all legal. And of course, taxes and financing. So generalist, in my view, helps. But of course, if you're a specialist, good, but then keep upgrading and keep changing your specialization, especially in the post-COVID world. How is a CA different? A CA is different because we have some USP. We have some unique selling proposition. We understand numbers. We understand we are above average intelligence, and we know the law, and that's why we are what we are. And because that's the advantage which we have. And therefore, what is our aim? What we want to become? We want to join an industry, or we want to join a practice? That again, every one of us, I think it's 50-50 amongst CAs. If you want to desire to join an industry, your aim should be ultimately to become a CFO and to grow to a CEO. This is what you should aim for. And if you want to become a CFO in an industry, you have to become a generalist. So just remaining an internal auditor, chief internal auditor, chief tax manager does not help in, I think. Yes, some of you may disagree with me, but this is my view. This is my experience I've found. If you can see the successful CFOs and CEOs in industry, you will find sooner they caught on to the generalist, they become more successful. If you are in practice, of course, you must aim to become a senior partner in a reputed firm, or have a successful practice of your own. And have successful practice of your own, of course, you must be having, and most of you have on this call, things might change. And therefore, if you can become a turnaround specialist, a generalist, and giving an answer to all that, how the companies can start making profits, would be a great addition to have. That should be, to my mind, a new skill and new areas to work for. So what is expected of a C at the end of the day? We must become a solution provider. We must be a turnaround specialist, and we need to be a guide to the management, a guide to the employer, a guide to the employer, and the guide to the company. So if we can guide the people as to how to do business, that's the best. So at the end of the day, if you need to be a confidant of what? Confidant of whom? Confidant of the entrepreneur, the confidant of the board, and confidant of the MD and CEO. So ladies and gentlemen, that ends my presentation, and happy to answer questions. It is 7:22.
Thank you, Robin. Thank you very much. I don't have a question, but before I hand over to Chirag to ask you questions, I've got a couple of observations. Throughout my life, I've heard so many presentations on soft skill, but this is the first time in a soft skill presentation where you have spoken about mentoring and different skills for people over the age of 55. So that's commendable. Of course, I'm not nearing 55 yet. I would like to be young, but yes, I'll keep this in mind. And second most important thing is that we at BCA are also aware, and we have a human resource development committee where we address all these issues that you have raised. And you'll be happy to know that this year our annual plan also, besides other growth areas, 5G was the growth areas, 5 areas of growth for our members. The most important was EQ, which you mentioned. The importance of human relationships and humans' emotions are upmost. Besides technology, economic benefit, it always remains. So I think so really, this your presentation was really, really helpful. And I hand over the proceedings to Chirag to ask the few questions that the members might have put in, and then propose a vote of thanks. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Robin, for this wonderful presentation. I'll just take up some questions which are there on the post. Basically, one of the question was from earlier one, that is the certificate which we get on clearance, is it lifetime or we have to reappear for exam after?
It's a lifetime.
Second was that if we have to pay some initial fees, so is there any separate charges for the exams or reappearing the exams?
Once you pay the initial fees, that covers exams also. I think it is 5,000 rupees for 1 year and 25,000 rupees lifetime, something like that.
And one thing is where you spoke about the hard skill and soft skill and a turnaround specialist. So if you could throw some more light on the opportunity for the turnaround specialist today.
The opportunity is in the field of consultancy. Post-COVID, now companies are going to become bankrupt. Most companies are now sick. So there are two things we will have to do. Either we have to get the feedback by refinancing, restructuring the balance sheet, or get into newer areas. Like for instance, let's say your client is in the restaurant business and the restaurant is incurring losses, and all of them are. Most of them are now become bankrupt already. What do you do with the restaurant business? The restaurant business obviously has great chefs. They have the culinary skills. They understand food, but yet the business has gone kaput. So what do? The world still has 7.8 billion population. India has 1.3 billion people. They will all need food to eat. Everyone in the world, COVID or no COVID, wants to eat good food. We can't go to a restaurant anymore. So what are you going to do? You are going to order food home. The moment you order food home, can you order good food home? And that's the business you should cater to. So get out of this restaurant, or get out of the rental of a high street restaurant, get into a sky kitchen. It could be on the 5th floor of an industrial gala where the rent will be 1/10 or maybe 1/20th, and start again serving food to hotels, to homes, to hospitals, to wherever, because people want good food. So you have to restructure quickly the business. A restaurateur may not be able to understand this game, but being a CA, you will be able to understand the game. And you will be able to put a project proposal quickly, go to the bank, get some equity, get some debt, put some resources behind it, get the rentals agreement done, get your new, let's say, FSSI license done, and get some people, HR, get some little CEO maybe, and get it up and running. So that's this is the turnaround specialist job. Again, now let me give you another example. Let us say, for instance, you are in a hotel. I'm now taking up the difficult ones. You are in the hotel business. You are consulting a hotel business. The hotel has gone kaput. Again, not doing well. People would be using hotel. There is no chance by not. But we have to make that hotel now COVID compliant. Can we make our hotel COVID compliant? It's not going to be easy. So moment you can make COVID compliant, again, the hotel will start looking up slowly. But if you're in airlines business, I don't think airlines business is going to come back in the next 2 years, perhaps. And if you are not having that sort of market share, I would suggest then maybe we should restructure business completely and get out of it and do something else. So a chartered accountant would be able to, or a C or a finance person, would be able to see a third view or a view from a distance and help the client or the entrepreneur to look at it in a different manner. That's the turnaround strategy or turnaround specialist I'm trying to advise to all of you. And there is no dirt of money here, and you can charge high fees. It's not like an auditing fee, because very few people will have the skill to do so, and therefore you can actually make more money, and a lot of money in my view.
So I think one last question, which is there is in terms of soft skills. You mentioned one example about BBC. Can you just give some couple of more suggestions on how to?
I think the sound has gone bad.
Can you hear?
Now I can hear you.
No, yeah, we just lost you for some time, Chirag.
Okay. So basically, in the soft skill area, you mentioned that one of the examples was BBC. Can you give a couple of more good examples of how to improve the soft skills or the
I think something is wrong with the audio now.
Chirag, we can't hear you.
Okay, I will.
Yeah, now it's fine. Now it's fine.
Now it's fine.
Okay. So basically, in the soft skill area, you gave an example about BBC. So
Yes.
can you give a couple of more examples to improve soft skill or presentation skills for that?
Oh, yes. Presentation skills, please look at the presentation skills of, let's say, international companies like Unilever, Reckitt and Benckiser, Coca-Cola. Many of these, they will not have all these presentations. Another way of looking at it is the international listed companies, their investor presentations. If you see the investor presentations, you will see how the presentations are done. The way they are structuring the information, the way they are structuring a PowerPoint, but these are all written. How to speak? Speaking is something I think we all have to learn. We all have to learn English speaking, and be focused. Don't speak too much. Be within time. Give solutions. Try to identify the problems, and and I suppose we should be able to do well. Don't have too much things on your PowerPoint presentation. Most of us write the whole sentence. We write the whole section on a paper, on a piece of paper. Nobody reads, and nobody is willing to read also that. If you have to write a section, might as well have a piece of paper in your hand, but don't put it up for others to be getting bored on that. Otherwise, what else can we do on presentations? I think if you...
Robin, sorry to interrupt. On a lighter note, in the current situation, maybe Netflix could be one of the solutions.
Netflix could be.
Because there are so many English serials which the youngsters are watching.
Yes, true. I agree with you.
But there are a lot of cuss words in that.
At least the English can improve for sure.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt.
One more thing. If you really watch the BBC programs over the next few weeks, that their presentations are very good, very precise, and good English. They don't speak much. It's not like CNN. CNN will speak a lot of English. BBC is a good place to learn. I also think in the YouTube, there are a few good presentations too, not too many. There are a few.
Robin,
Yes.
can I ask a question, Robin?
Of course, sir. I have all the time.
Yeah. In your presentation, you mentioned about the SIP, subject knowledge, identification of problems, and providing solutions. Chartered accountants, right from their articleship period, are used to only asking questions, queries. Ye queries ka answer kya hai? They are not used to giving solutions actually, So with post-COVID, I feel that you are now telling us to become consultants. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. So the mindset of the chartered accountant, Indian chartered accountant, post-COVID has to become like a business consultant. So what should be the areas where he can read about providing solutions to the problems actually?
I think the solution providing is all in the mindset. We have to tell ourselves, हम identify करेंगे और solution भी बताएंगे. The moment you start doing that, sir, within 7 to 15 days, automatically solution आ जाएगा.
Okay. So you have to break the mindset actually.
Break the mindset. There are no books, no papers. Thankfully, there is no book. अच्छा है, so that हमारा competition नहीं है.
Yeah. How your family, when they catch up you give some ideas, some. BCA के मीटिंग में गया था. Thank you, Robin. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Robin.
I think thank you, Robin, for providing all the solutions to the questions raised by our members. It's my honor to present and vote of thanks to you. It was really lucid the way you took all the modules in such short span of time for which a director has to go through and then appear for the examinations and what the examinations are all about. It definitely gives some clarifications and courage to our members to become a director. And definitely, as you said, CA could be one of the best candidate for a director in these days. So definitely gives more courage and opportunity to our members. And definitely the second part of the presentation about the soft and the hard skills, which was very lucid. The way you took the presentation definitely highlighted the key areas where a chartered accountant or a member has to look for when they are looking for a soft skill or especially the hard skill, both of them, including the digitalization world and the post-COVID scenario. So with this, I think thanks to you for taking out time, preparing such a wonderful presentation, a lengthier one, so obviously you would have given a lot of time for it. And I, on behalf of all the participants, give you a thanks and a round of applause. Thank you so much for this, and we would definitely look
Thank
for
you, Robin.
Thank you. Thank you.
Chirag, please share the presentation with the
Looking
members.
to
Surely, I will do that.
yes. Looking to catch up soon.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.